Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? Like beneath the surface of your daily routines and social masks lies a deeper, truer version of yourself waiting to be discovered? What if I told you that the life you're experiencing right now is just the beginning, a mere prelude to what could be? The renowned psychologist Carl Jung believed that most people never truly live at all. They merely exist, trapped in the shallow waters of consciousness, while the vast ocean of their authentic self remains unexplored. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of Jungian psychology to understand what it truly means to find yourself. This isn't about Instagram-worthy self-care routines or superficial changes to your appearance. We're talking about a profound psychological journey that has the power to transform your existence from mechanical survival to authentic living. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the most important journey you'll ever take isn't to some exotic destination. It's the voyage inward, to discover who you really are beneath the masks you wear every day. We all wear masks, not physical ones, but psychological, facades we've crafted since childhood. These personas help us navigate social situations, meet expectations, and gain approval from others. Think about the professional version of yourself at work, the family member role you play at home, or the social identity you present to friends. Each is a carefully curated performance. Jung called this outer face we show to the world the persona, a term derived from ancient Greek theater masks, highlighting its essentially artificial nature. These masks aren't inherently negative. They serve important functions in our social development. They help us adapt, fit in, and even protect our more vulnerable inner selves from potential harm. However, the danger comes when we forget that we're wearing masks at all. Over time, many people become so identified with their personas that they lose touch with who they truly are beneath these social constructions. Have you ever caught yourself behaving differently depending on who you're with? Almost as if you're playing different characters across various settings in your life. Many of us reach a point, often in midlife, where these personas no longer satisfy us. Something feels missing, hollow, or inauthentic despite outward success and social approval. This emptiness signals what Jung considered a profound opportunity, the call to individuation. It's the psyche's way of telling us that we've outgrown mere social adaptation and are ready for something deeper. Like an actor who's tired of playing assigned roles, something within yearns to express what's uniquely and authentically our own. This disconnection from our authentic self manifests in various ways. Inexplicable sadness despite external success, a sense of meaninglessness, persistent feelings of emptiness, or the nagging question, is this all there is? These symptoms aren't signs of failure. They're invitations to a deeper journey. Consider the successful executive who feels strangely empty despite achievements, or the social butterfly who feels profoundly alone despite constant connection. These paradoxes point to the gap between our outer presentation and inner reality. Individuation, perhaps Jung's most revolutionary concept, describes the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. Unlike self-improvement, which often focuses on enhancing your social mask, individuation involves integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of your psyche into a unified whole. It's not about becoming perfect or socially ideal, but about becoming completely yourself, embracing both your light and shadow aspects with equal honesty and courage. This journey isn't linear or predictable. It unfolds uniquely for each person. Jung observed that individuation typically accelerates in midlife, when the strategies and identities that served us in the first half of life begin to feel constraining. The goals that once motivated us, career advancement, social status, material acquisition, may suddenly seem hollow. This often precipitates what we now call a midlife crisis, but Jung saw it differently. Not as a crisis, but as an awakening, a necessary disruption that propels us toward greater authenticity. The process begins with confronting what Jung called the shadow, those aspects of ourselves we've rejected, denied, or hidden away because they didn't fit our idealized self-image. These might include negative traits like anger, selfishness, or laziness, but also positive qualities like creativity or assertiveness that somehow threatened our adaptation to family or social expectations. Acknowledging these disowned parts is difficult, but transformative. When was the last time you recognized an aspect of yourself that you typically deny or project onto others? As individuation progresses, we encounter deeper layers of the unconscious, including the anima, feminine aspects in men, or animus, masculine aspects in women, representing the full spectrum of human qualities beyond gender stereotypes. We also connect with the self, Jung's term for the organizing center of the entire psyche that contains our unique potential. Unlike the ego, which identifies with our conscious personality, the self encompasses our total being. This connection often comes through dreams, creative expression, or moments of profound insight that feel as if they come from beyond our ordinary consciousness. That irritating colleague who always triggers an inexplicable anger in you. That public figure you despise without quite knowing why. According to Jung, these strong reactions often reveal your shadow, the parts of yourself you've disowned and now unconsciously project onto others. The shadow contains everything we've rejected from our conscious identity, traits, desires, and capacities we've deemed unacceptable. It's not inherently evil, but simply what we've chosen not to acknowledge as part of ourselves. The shadow forms in childhood as we learn which behaviors earn approval and which bring rejection. If expressing anger resulted in punishment, you might have repressed this emotion, pushing it into your shadow. If vulnerability was exploited, you might have banished your softer qualities. These rejected aspects don't disappear. They go underground, influencing you in unconscious ways. They leak out in moments of stress, in dreams, in slips of the tongue, and most revealingly, in your strongest emotional reactions to others. Coming to terms with your shadow requires brutal honesty. The courage to ask whether what bothers you in others might be an unacknowledged quality in yourself. This doesn't mean you become your worst impulses. Rather, by acknowledging them, you gain choice and awareness. The shadow, when recognized, becomes a source of energy and authenticity rather than unconscious self-sabotage. Consider how differently you might respond to situations if you could acknowledge and integrate your full range of reactions and impulses. Shadow work is perhaps the most challenging aspect of individuation, yet it offers tremendous rewards. Increased energy, as less psychic effort goes toward repression, clearer perception as projections diminish, and improved relationships as you develop compassion for the full spectrum of human nature. People who've confronted their shadows often describe a profound sense of relief, a feeling of finally being honest with themselves after years of maintaining an exhausting facade. They discover that aspects they feared would make them unlovable actually make them more human and relatable. Most people don't live, they merely function, going through the motions of daily life without conscious awareness or intention. They wake up, follow routines, fulfill obligations, seek distraction, and repeat the cycle day after day. Jung called this sleepwalking through life, a state where your decisions aren't truly yours but are dictated by social conditioning, unexamined assumptions, and unconscious complexes. Have you ever reached the end of a busy day and realized you can barely remember what happened because you were on autopilot the entire time? Authentic living, by contrast, emerges from conscious choice rather than conditioning. It involves knowing your values and acting from them rather than from habit or expectation. It requires presence, being fully engaged in your experiences rather than mentally elsewhere. And perhaps most importantly, it demands honesty, the courage to acknowledge what you truly feel, think, and want, rather than what you believe you should feel, think, or want. This shift from automatic to authentic living often begins with simple awareness, noticing when you're acting from conditioning rather than choice. The cost of remaining unconscious is immense, though often unrecognized. It manifests as a vague sense of dissatisfaction, persistent anxiety, or the feeling that something essential is missing from life, despite having all the external markers of success. More dramatically, it can erupt as depression, addiction, or what Jung called a neurosis, psychological symptoms that force us to confront what we've been avoiding. These painful experiences, while challenging, often serve as gateways to greater awareness, compelling us to question the assumptions and patterns that have governed our lives. Modern psychology has validated Jung's insights, with research confirming that authentic living correlates strongly with psychological well-being. People who live authentically report greater life satisfaction, more positive emotions, stronger relationships, and even better physical health outcomes. The reason is simple. Living in alignment with your true nature requires less psychological energy than maintaining a false self. When you stop fighting who you really are, that energy becomes available for creative expression, meaningful connection, and engaged presence in your life. Every great mythological hero faces trials, confronts dragons, and ultimately returns transformed, not just in outward circumstance, but in inner nature. Jung recognized that these ancient hero myths weren't merely entertainment, but symbolic representations of the individuation process. The dragons represent our fears and shadow aspects. The trials symbolize the challenges of self-confrontation. The transformation illustrates the integration of previously unconscious material into a more complete self. Your journey toward authenticity follows this same archetypal pattern. Unlike external adventures, this inner heroic journey isn't celebrated by society. There are no medals for confronting your shadow, no public acclaim for integrating your unconscious. In fact, true individuation often requires swimming against the cultural current, questioning collective values, and sometimes disappointing others' expectations. This explains why many people avoid the journey. It demands courage to stand apart from the crowd and to value inner truth above social approval. Yet those who take this path discover a profound sense of integrity and inner peace that no external validation can provide. This journey isn't something you complete in a weekend workshop or through reading a self-help book. It's the work of a lifetime. It unfolds in spirals rather than linear progression, with each level of growth revealing new aspects of yourself to integrate. What makes the process worthwhile is that each step toward greater authenticity brings its own rewards. More genuine connections with others, greater access to your creativity and gifts, increased resilience in facing life's challenges, and a deeper sense of meaning that transcends changing circumstances. The path of individuation doesn't require abandoning your responsibilities or relationships. Quite the opposite. As you become more authentic, you bring greater presence and integrity to every aspect of your life. Your relationships deepen because you're connecting from your true self rather than a persona. Your work becomes more meaningful as it aligns with your genuine values rather than external metrics of success. Even ordinary moments take on new significance as you experience them with full awareness rather than divided attention or habitual numbness. Have you ever had a dream so vivid, so charged with emotion, that it stayed with you for days afterward? Jung considered dreams not as random neural firing, but as meaningful communications from the unconscious. Messages from parts of ourselves that can't speak directly to our waking consciousness. They offer glimpses of what lies beneath our conscious awareness, revealing neglected aspects of our psyche and pointing toward greater wholeness. In dreams, our shadow aspects, repressed emotions, and undeveloped potentials find symbolic expression. Unlike Freud, who viewed dreams primarily as disguised wish fulfillments, Jung saw them as compensatory, balancing our conscious attitude by bringing forward what we're neglecting or denying. If you're overly rational in waking life, your dreams might overflow with emotion or fantasy. If you've been ignoring an important decision, your dreams might place you at a crossroads or present repeated obstacles. Pay attention to recurring dream themes or images that provoke strong emotions. They often indicate important psychic material, seeking integration into your conscious life. Dreams speak the language of symbols rather than literal statements, making their interpretation both art and science. A house in a dream typically represents your psyche, with different rooms corresponding to different aspects of yourself. Water often symbolizes the unconscious, with its depth and mysterious currents. Animals frequently represent instinctual energies that may be either threatening or supportive depending on your relationship with these aspects of yourself. Learning to work with your dreams involves developing a personal relationship with these symbols, rather than applying rigid interpretations. The most powerful dreams often come during significant life transitions or periods of inner conflict, precisely when conscious guidance is most needed. They can reveal blind spots in your understanding, suggest creative solutions to problems, or illuminate aspects of yourself that are ready to emerge into consciousness. Many scientific and artistic breakthroughs throughout history have come through dreams, from Kekule's discovery of the benzene ring to Mary Shelley's inspiration for Frankenstein. These creative leaps occur when the conscious mind relaxes its control, allowing unconscious material to emerge. You think of an old friend for the first time in years, and minutes later they call you. You repeatedly encounter the same obscure symbol across different contexts in a single day. You randomly open a book to find exactly the passage that addresses your current dilemma. Jung coined the term synchronicity for these meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by conventional causality. He defined them as a causal connecting principles, events linked by meaning rather than cause and effect, suggesting a deeper order underlying our reality. Synchronicities typically occur during periods of heightened emotional intensity or significant psychological transition. They seem to cluster around important life decisions, creative breakthroughs, or deep inner work. Jung observed that as people progressed in their individuation journey, synchronicities often increased, as if the boundary between inner and outer reality became more permeable. These experiences challenge our conventional understanding of reality, suggesting connections between psyche and matter that Western scientific thinking has traditionally rejected. What makes a coincidence a synchronicity is not just its statistical improbability, but its personal meaningfulness. The event resonates with your inner state in a way that feels significant, often providing confirmation, guidance, or a sense that you're on the right path. Many people report that synchronicities appear most frequently when they're living more authentically, making decisions aligned with their deeper values rather than external expectations. It's as if reality itself responds when you step into greater alignment with your true nature. From a psychological perspective, synchronicities serve an important function in the individuation process. They provide moments of connection between conscious and unconscious, between personal psyche and the broader patterns of existence. They offer glimpses of a more meaningful universe than the purely mechanistic one described by conventional science. For many people, these experiences foster a sense of being participated in by something larger than themselves, not necessarily in a religious sense, but in the recognition of patterns and connections that transcend individual consciousness. The journey of individuation isn't about reaching a fixed destination. There's no certificate of completion, no moment when you can say, "I am now fully individuated." Rather, it's about embracing a way of being that values authenticity over conformity, depth over appearance, and meaning over mere comfort. It's about developing a relationship with all aspects of yourself, not just the socially acceptable parts, and bringing that whole self to your engagement with life. As Jung himself put it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This path isn't easy. It requires facing uncomfortable truths, questioning cherished assumptions, and sometimes standing apart from collective values. There's a reason why many people avoid this inner work, preferring the relative safety of unconsciousness despite its limitations. But consider the alternative. Reaching the end of your life only to realize you've lived someone else's version of it, that you've sacrificed your authentic self on the altar of approval and conformity. Is there any greater tragedy than to discover too late that you never fully showed up for your own life? The invitation to awakening is always present, in moments of discontent that signal something is missing, in dreams that point toward unexplored aspects of yourself, in synchronicities that hint at deeper patterns of meaning. The question is whether you'll heed these invitations or dismiss them in favor of the familiar. Jung observed that most significant psychological development happens not through steady growth, but through crisis and disruption. When old patterns no longer work and new possibilities must emerge. Perhaps the challenges you're facing right now are not obstacles to your happiness, but gateways to your authenticity. As we conclude this exploration, I invite you to consider one question. What would change in your life if you committed to living more authentically, to honoring your true nature rather than adapting to external expectations? This doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities or relationships, but rather bringing more of your genuine self to them. It means listening to the quiet voice within that knows what matters to you beyond social conditioning. It means having the courage to live from the inside out rather than the outside in, to make choices based on your own inner truth rather than others' approval.